Okay, so we went ahead and clicked start record. And so, hello everybody. So what we're doing in this video is we are going through the steps to deploy a static portfolio site to Heroku. And then once we deploy a static site to Heroku, then we're going to go ahead and deploy our React apps to Heroku separately. So kind of two deployments, and the settings and kind of the configurations are going to be somewhat different between the two. All we've done kind of prior to hitting the record button here, the first step is we went through our portfolio. So on our static web portfolios, and these are often built in Bootstrap, and we do them around day 40 of the semester. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to get all of our file names and folders lowercase. So go ahead and go through Windows Explorer, which is this little, this is this little folder right here. This is called Windows Explorer. Okay. And you're going to dig into your portfolio through Windows, and you're just going to make sure that all of your file names and folders are lowercase. Okay, and the reason for that is we're going to deploy this to a Linux server, and Linux is case sensitive, whereas Windows not so much. Okay, so we're going to go ahead, and everything that we've done so far has been on Windows, so it doesn't really care that our caps are different, but Heroku is case sensitive, so that's step one. Step two, we just want to make sure that our home page is named index.html, and the main thing there, well, the main thing there is just matching that file name exactly. Okay, so we do kind of go through, talk about the difference between, HTML and HTML. Basically, different web servers are looking for different file extensions, HTML being the newer file extension, and that's what Heroku looks for. So we just want to make sure that our home page on our static portfolio site is index.html. And that's kind of the second step that we are needing to take before we deploy to Heroku. All right.
So next thing we want to do is go ahead and commit and push all that code the code changes that we've made so far.
Great. So step 3, commit and push changes to your GitHub repo. Okay, so you're going to go to whatever tool of choice you're using this semester to go ahead and commit those changes, push those changes, make sure they're on github.com. That's step 3. Okay, once we've done our commit and push, we're going to navigate to Heroku.com.
So this is a service. They provide free hosting and free CI/CD for a variety of applications. You can host. Generally, it's used for Node. I think originally their main service they worked with was Ruby, but you can host all sorts of languages with it. And it provides some really useful and easy use tools to kind of get things from, hey, here's a repo, I want to get things online. So it includes what we call continuous integration, continuous deployment, where you just say, hey, I want to push my changes to GitHub, and it will immediately upload theirs. You don't have to use things like FTP and other tools like that to upload the files. You don't have to click any additional deployment buttons within your IDE to make things go up. You just put them into GitHub and they go live.
Yep.
So it's what we call, just terminology, it's infrastructure as a service, IaaS, because they're kind of providing the infrastructure and you're using their infrastructure, their servers and those kind of things. So we need to create an account here. You probably don't have one yet, so you're going to go ahead and sign up. You'll put in your real information, your first and last name, your school email address, I would recommend. Although I guess you could use your personal, up to you. Rank and technical college, yes, is the company, and it would be student as your role.
I'll go ahead and follow suit. I'm going to click on student.
And Node.js is what we're going to select, because what we're going to be pushing out technically as far as they're concerned, as far as Heroku's concerned, both of these will be Node applications.
So all that's pretty self-explanatory. Just make sure your primary development language is Node.js. And just to repeat what Mr. Smith said, the cool thing about this is that as soon as we commit our portfolios to GitHub, as soon as we make a push to GitHub, that is effectively going to do the deployment for us. There's no additional steps. It's just kind of a lot of the work is taken care of for us as far as getting it deployed on a web server and those settings, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to click Create Free Account.
Yeah.
Want. Retry later.
Oh, great.
Uh,
Try it one more time. Maybe we'll get lucky and it'll just be a temporary thing.
okay,
There we go.
that's funny. Please check my email, so I will pull that up off screen.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a confirmation email. Looks like this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to click on that. It's going to put it up.
Just to say, yep.
Just to say, yep, I will create my password off screen. Just create a strong random password, characters of something lengthy.
Do you have, by the way, do you have LastPass installed on that computer?
I had LastPass installed, and I know they have a...
So both LastPass and Chrome can automatically generate a password for you.
Yes, correct. Now when you're in Chrome, there we go, but that's going to be on screen. So let me go ahead and take this. Well, that's not even Chrome. That's not Chrome. Either way, yeah, I know there's password generator tools in there. So I'm just using something.
Yeah,
let's see.
fine.
Let's see. In fact, I don't want this confirmation. I want this done in Chrome so it does remember.
Yeah.
So I'm going to copy this URL.
Heads up, just for future reference, be careful about doing that precisely. Go ahead and do what you're going to do. Fair forewarning, some of these confirmation emails like that are a one-time click. Depending on what service you're using, it looks like they don't have that issue, but sometimes when you're clicking activation links or confirmation links, they're only good once. So once you clicked it, it may be done. So
I got to sign in through Chrome.
mm-hmm.
There's my confirmation email. Now I'm in Chrome. Now I can use Chrome's password generator.
And it'll just remember it.
And let me set password and log in, and it should just remember it. Yeah. Password saved. Click here to proceed.
Yeah. So you need to go back to Heroku.com.
Okay. So I went ahead and just, finished up that process. Of course, I have to agree to the terms and services. So, of course, I'm going to read all that very quickly. I'm not in Italy. I'm not in Italy. Welcome to Heroku.
Yeah. So just to check that you can still get in, I would go ahead and sign out.
Sign out and sign back in.
And sign back in just to make sure you're all good. Now, notice it didn't remember your email. So
that's what it's good at. Yeah, you got instead of rankin.edu. Let's log in and see if it updates.
Yeah, there it will.
Okay, of course we want multi-factor. So I'm going to go ahead and recommend you set that up real quick. It's always a great idea.
Say maybe not. Usually I do multi-factor with an email.
Download and install an Authenticator app on your mobile device. Scan this QR code, enter the code generated by this app. So I use Google Authenticator.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and click on Authenticator, click Add, scan a QR code.
Yeah. Like the Salesforce Authenticator app, if you set up that on there, you will not be able to get into this account if you lose your phone or you uninstall that app. So just a major heads up, you will lose your account if you potentially if you go through that Salesforce Authenticator mode. It's a good security layer, but it's one of those things that comes with some cons.
Okay. I am now set up with two-factor with my Google Authenticator on my cell phone. So we'll get to go ahead and get to this point. We'll pause the recording while everyone gets caught up.
If you take a look here, once you get there.
Yeah, we're live.
Okay, so once you get in here, once you're in the login screen, you'll see that there's two options. There's create a team, create an app, or create a team. Create a team is good if you're working with projects for somebody else, with other people. You might want to create a team so you can share those projects with multiple people, but we're just working with applications. So what we would end up doing is we're going to create some applications, and namely, we're going to create an app for everything that we want to push out. So we're going to be creating two applications today. That's the plan. We're going to create one for your portfolio and another one for your React application. Okay. Now, what I might say is we might want to do maybe a little bit of detour before we actually create the application, just to get some things set up. So one of the things that we need to do in order for Heroku to work, Heroku doesn't support having projects as nested inside of a larger repo. Okay, so right now one of the problems we have is your portfolio is kind of buried in this larger repo. The normal industry convention is that if you have a repo, it should only ever have one project in it. So actually the way that I work, and I work on my own things, is if I'm making a new project, that's a new repo. I don't put multiple assignments, multiple projects into the same repository. That's not the convention, and there's a lot of reasons why that's the case. But in order for us to work with Heroku, we need to do that. We need to take the portfolio that's right now inside of your coursework repo and move it out into its own repo, into its own repository. Okay, so I've done a little pre-work to help you through this process. Okay, you could theoretically do this all yourself, create a repo from scratch. But there's enough things that you want to set up. What I've created on GitHub is something called a template repo. A template repo is, hey, anybody can go to it and they can make a copy of that repository. Okay. In fact, that's how you created your coursework repo at the beginning of the semester. Is we provided a template to start with. Okay. So what you want to do is go out to github.com, and I'm going to give you that template. In fact, it's kind of interesting as it's there because I did some updates with it today. But you're more than likely not going to see that. You go to search, and you're going to type in Paul Smith KC, that's my name, slash AWD 1000 underscore base. And you're going to hit enter on that. That's going to get you searching. Okay, so that one there up at the top, that is the one that we want. It says template repo for AWD 1000 projects. Okay, so click on that. If you want, you can copy that and throw that on Discord, just so everybody's got, make sure that everybody's at the same place, so they've got a copy of that link. But that's the starting point that we're going to use. Okay, so up in the right, usually what you would see is a button for like code, and you would see the option to clone that repository. This one's a little bit different. You'll notice that the code button's here, and it's in white, right? If you click on it, you'll see the same thing of here I can clone it, right? Because I marked this as a template, there's another button to the right called Use This Template. You can everybody see that? Click on Use This Template. All right, so this is going to get you to here. You're going to see your name there, and you're going to type in the repository name. So you pick out what you want them to call that. If you mark this as public, that code is going to be public to the entire internet. Anybody's going to be able to get that. If you mark it as private, only you are going to be able to see that code. This process with Heroku will work either way. You can do public or private. Since you're doing a portfolio though, and you're doing this as something you may want to show to employers, this is probably a good one to mark as public, because then employers can see the code for your portfolio. That's probably a good thing. So I would probably mark this one as public. I usually tell my students to make their repositories private, but this is kind of a different case, right? This is a different case where it might be valuable to make these things public. So you'll probably want to name that as portfolio, not demo portfolio. I know you're going through, that's fine. But as far as students, you probably want to just name this portfolio.
Yeah, good point. So you guys maybe just name it portfolio. For me, I'll just call it demo portfolio, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
For me, I would not call this my portfolio. For you, you would.
And so once you get that, you're going to hit create repository from template. That's going to take a few minutes. It's kind of spin. It's going to take all of those files that are currently in that repository and make you a brand new repository with all the files that I've provided. Okay, and that way you're not starting with an empty repository and you have to create all these things from scratch and kind of understand those pieces. So what I've provided here is a very simple Node.js server that just serves up static files. You know how you've got kind of a live server, you use that to kind of serve your stuff as a static file server. I've basically provided a very simple version, a simplified version that we can utilize. Okay, and so basically that's so we can serve things as a Node.js app to Heroku instead of serving them as a static project. Cool. Okay, so what you're going to do once you've made a copy or created a repository from that template is you're going to go to code and you're going to clone that repository down. And before we bring in your portfolio stuff, we're going to kind of look at what's already there and play around with it a little bit, and then we'll bring in your files. So you're going to clone that.
So I click on File, Clone Repository, and then I click on URL.
You can do much faster than that.
And I click on Paste, and then I give it a local path. I know there's multiple ways to do it, Mr. Smith. How would you do it?
I would hit cancel. If you just go back to the website, there's a much faster way to do this.
So there's a
open with GitHub Desktop.
Open with GitHub
Desktop.
Desktop.
Directly to it and put all the things in that you need.
So let's click on that.
Yep.
It says GitHub, and this says Open with Tortoise Git.
Because you've got your default set as that. If you have your default as GitHub Desktop, it will go through to GitHub Desktop. If your default is Tortoise
I'm
Git,
just going to stick with my process.
Yeah, so go ahead and copy that.
Copy
just
that.
Worth mentioning that's kind of the way that they usually recommend.
File, clone, URL, paste. And the local path is very important.
Yes.
You don't, I don't oftentimes keep the default path that they give us. I do probably want this on my, yeah, actually in this case, desktop, web dev repos, demo portfolio, that's fine. I'll go ahead and keep that here. The point is you need to know where this is. This is an important path on your computer. You can't forget where it is. It's important. And I know that almost seems like, well, of course I wouldn't forget that, but
it happens every time.
Happens all the time. So I'm going to click clone.
Because we're going to need it here in the very next thing we do.
Now you can see my current repository is demo portfolio. No changes. It's basically synced.
Yep, it's already synced. So what you're going to do is you're going to now find that folder. You're going to find that folder and open it in Visual Studio Code.
Okay.
In fact, actually, I think there's a button there. It looks like in GitHub Desktop for it. Open the repository.
Open the repository in Visual Studio Code. That's wonderful.
That's what we want to do. So that should open it directly and get in here. Okay. So you're going to see if you expand that out, you're going to see that there's a bunch of files already set up. Okay. There's a bunch of linter stuff. If you expand expand the window. There's a bunch of stuff in here. If you look at README, this is a good place to start. There's some basic instructions. All of the code that we end up pulling in is going to go into the public folder. There's 2 commands that you'll need to know: npm install to get dependencies, and npm run start dev is how we're actually going to start the server. It's worth mentioning this will not work with your live server plugin. Once you're in here, live server will not work. Live server will not work with this plugin. This is the process you have to use. Okay, so if you look at server.js here, this is really the thing that's doing the magic. You'll learn about how to set this up yourself in 3rd semester, but this is just setting up a very simple server that serves up all the files from the public. So we create a new server. We say, hey, everything in public is served. You'll notice that I've hard-coded in a index.html. If you wanted your home page to be index.html, this is what you'd have to change. If you had a different extension there, you would need to have that there. So that's what's telling it what the index file is. And then we're serving it up on a port, which is defaulting to port 3000. So that's just the gist of what's happening here. This is not code we need to mess with. Again, you'll see it in 3rd semester, but it's what's making this work. Your server.js is that main file that's making all of this work for you.
I'm going to repeat, put all of your code inside of the public folder. So glancing in the public folder, you can see there's already an index. We'll probably be overriding that. Okay, so let's go back to the README. Put all of your code inside the public folder, and then there's a couple of terminal commands we need to run to get this up and running. Npm install, and then to launch the page, npm run dev start.
Yeah, so that's what we're going to do now.
Start dev.
Kind of just see it run. So
Okay.
we're going to go to terminal, and we're going to run the npm install command. That's going to go ahead and install all the things we need, like Express and .env and other dependencies that are already baked in. Now, it's giving you an error there, which is kind of interesting. So, all right, so we need to fix, we'll need to fix that error that
Okay.
just popped up. But
1 second here, Mr. Smith. Okay.
All right, so we did npm install. It complained about something about a bad engine, and basically there's something in there that's saying which version of Node you need installed, and there's a different version installed on this computer.
Did you guys get this particular when you ran this?
Yeah. Okay. We'll come back and fix that.
Okay.
It's part of our steps to kind of set this up. So we did an npm install. We now need to do an npm run start dev. So that's going to run what's called the run. Anytime you see npm run, you're running a script. So we're running a script named start dev. Enter. Okay, so that's what's actually going to start our server up. So rather than using like the live server plugin, the circuit server, you're going to do that. Now, here it's saying, hey, we need to install Nodemon because we've never installed it before. I'm going to go ahead and hit yes on that. Okay, now it says app running at HTTP localhost. In fact, you can hold control and click on that link. It will open it directly in your browser of choice. Cool. So this is all that's there, right? This is just serving that simple hello world file from the public folder. And so basically, the way this is going to work, any files we put into public, all those static files, are just going to be served up to the client. Cool.
So let's just, so in other words, I can go into index and there's my hello world.
Yeah. So if you make a change to it, right? If you change the text there and save that, you can go back to the browser, right? You'll hit refresh and there's your new code, right? So it's as simple as that. So all the other files that are there, just know that they're files that you do need to have. They are required for this to work, but you won't need to touch, right? So all of your portfolio will end up going into this public repository. Okay, so next things. So we've gone through, I've got a few kind of steps on the board. So first thing was we need to set up a repository. So we've done that now. We'll come back and we'll bring in your actual portfolios in a minute, but we're going to go focus on getting this live, just getting the Hello World live. So we need to figure out what version of Node you have in our running. So you saw the error about the bad engine. That was because we're kind of on a different version. So what you want to do is hit Control C, as in Control Copy, to stop it. And now we're going to run one specific command: node space -v.
Interesting, you can't see my V.
Yeah, it looks like it's highlighting out. You might need to be on a dark theme for it to be visible.
Yeah.
So
That's kind of interesting. So switch to a dark theme. I don't know where
yeah,
that's going
so go to your extensions
extensions.
and go to IU.
Yeah.
Yep. Set color theme.
Set color theme.
And go to IU Mirage bordered. Here you go.
No.
And it's still pretty faded, but at least you can see it. Okay, so now node-v, that's going to give you a number, okay? That number will probably be different for every one of you, okay? That's the version of Node that you have installed, okay? You need to take the version that you have installed, not the version that's up here on this screen, but the version that appears on your screen to do the next step, just so we're clear. So ignore what's up here. Don't use this number. Use the number that's on your own screen, okay? We're going to toss off the V standing for version, and so the version that we're going to use here as our node version. Can I erase this?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're taking some notes here because we're going to need this for both projects. So the version of Node that we have is 16-10-.0. Okay, that's our Node version. Okay, remember we got that from Node-V. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to go open the package.json file. In there, you may see that there's a section called engines. Okay, engines tells Node and other services that you're providing us, such as Heroku, what version of Node are you utilizing, right? So we need to set that to 16.10.0 because that was what is in our console. So you're going to go to change Node, you're going to change engines Node to your version. Remember to leave off that B. So we've got 16.10.0. Your number may be different. 16.1. Okay. All right. So looking back at package.json.
Package.json here.
So the thing we just changed was you changed the version to match our version. Okay. The reason that's important is because it tells Heroku what version of Node to use when we deploy our applications, so that things are compatible. If you don't set this, you may get an error from Heroku saying, hey, I can't deploy your application because I don't know what version of Node to install. I don't know what engine to install. And so this is one thing we're going to actually have to do on both of those projects. This engines node, we're going to have to set that both on the portfolio project and on the React project. It's going to be the same process for both of those. Cool. One gotcha on the React project. This won't be in here at all to begin with, so we're actually going to have to type that in manually when we do this with React. Just a heads up. Okay. So now that we've got that set up, we want to go ahead and commit and push all those changes that we've just made. Oh, actually, yeah. Before we commit and push, there's one more thing we need to do.
Sure.
In the root of the repository, it's really important that this is in the right place. Scroll down, and I think actually I already added it. Yeah, static.json. There is a way, and I recently learned about this, there is a way for Heroku to serve static files without some of these wrappers and things like that. It relies on there being a static.json file. This is something we'll want to set up for the React app, but it tells it how to serve that. So for here, we're telling it the root of the file system is in public, okay? And then we're saying, hey, if you go to the route / then render or show the index.html file. This HTTPS only says basically if the user tries to connect to your server on HTTP, it will redirect them to HTTPS because Heroku comes in built-in support. So those are things just so you're aware is another file in there that is setting up static hosting if you would so need it. Okay. All right, so we can come in and push that. I forgot I'd already set that up. Okay.
Commit and push.
Push that. All right, so now we're going to go, now that we've done that setup, we're going to go back to Heroku and actually create the application.
So we're back on our dashboard.
Yep.
Create new app.
Create new app. Okay. And so the application name, okay, here is pretty important. Okay. The application name, actually, it's worth mentioning, is not unique to you. It's unique to everybody on Heroku. Okay. So if I take the name portfolio, nobody can use the name portfolio. These things have to be perfectly unique. Okay. So your name should include probably your student name. One thing worth mentioning here, because this is going to be part of a domain name, it does have to be all lowercase. I do believe you can put dashes in to separate words if you wanted to, but it does have to be all lowercase. So a good thing to do in here, you might say, like, just put your name, right? So I might put this in as just Paul Smith, you know, if I wanted to host it as my portfolio.
And this is part of the URL, so the longer you
Yes.
make it, you know, short URLs are more memorable, right?
This is
Generally
something that
speaking.
your user is going to have to potentially type in. So yeah, you do want to keep it short, to some sense. Okay. So once you've got your name in there, we're going to go ahead and hit create app. Okay. That's going to get you in here. Okay, we've got an application created. All right. So this is where we're now going to do a little bit of configuration on it. So we're down to step 4. We're going to set up what's called some configuration variables. So I'm going to go over to settings and take a look at that. So over in settings, there's a section called configuration variables. These pop into your server as what we call environment variables. They're available to actually access in your code. So we use this to configure a lot of different things. So go ahead and hit reveal config bars. There's a few that we pretty much always set. So I'm going to give you a few here that you want to set. Node, it's all uppercase, by the way. All of these keys will be all uppercase. So node underscore env. That tells Node what environment to run in. And so there's basically 2 to pick from, development or production. Development's basically for local development and whatnot. When you want to run something live, you want to be running it in production. So we're going to set that as production.
Capital?
Lowercase. So over on the right, this is lowercase. Over on the left, it's uppercase.
So it's node env.
Node underscore env. The underscore is important.
Got it.
Click add.
Yep. Okay. So that's one we're going to set up there. Oftentimes, I'll also have my students do this one. I don't know that it matters for this project, but go ahead and take it in. Debug, all uppercase, space, and we'll do app, colon, start. And hit enter. Those are the 2 we're going to set up here. I don't know that that second one will make any difference from what we're doing here. I don't think I set up debug on this particular application, but those are 2 things I oftentimes have as kind of my starting point. So that's an important thing to understand. We'll need to set up some different environment variables when we go to the React app. React app's going to be a little bit different on that. So next thing we want to do is look at the build packs. Build pack is going to tell it kind of how you want to deploy these things. So go ahead and hit add build pack, and we're going to deploy this as a Node application. So you're going to pick Node. So click on Node and hit save changes. There we go. So we say, here's the environment variables, and this is a node application. Cool. That gets us down to step 5. Last step, we're actually deploy this. So if you go back up top, you're going to go over to deploy. There are a few options as far as deployment methods. So in the middle, you'll see that there's Heroku Git, there's GitHub, and there's a container registry. There's some options there. Basically, the first two are both ways that you can use Git to deploy the process, deploy your applications. If you use the first one, Heroku Git, you'll have to do some command line. You'll have to type in and use Git on the command line in order to push your repository. I know some people do that. I know that that's the primary thing in their documentation. I usually find that kind of cumbersome. So what I usually do is the one in the middle, which is GitHub. This basically automates the process for you. So what you're going to do is connect to GitHub. Okay, you're going to need to authorize your account so that it can access those things. And so you're going to get there. Yeah.
Let me pull up my password off screen.
Yeah. So what we're doing is we're giving GitHub access to our repositories. Access to our.
Oh, maybe it already knew. Yeah, it already knew it. I didn't need to. Whatever. I got it. Okay.
That's fine. Okay. So now it's got access. And so now, if you just hit search, you actually may see a good number of results come up. Because it's going to go, oh, I can see all your repositories, right? So what we want to look for specifically is that portfolio repository detected. So go ahead and here in the field, type in portfolio.
Mine's in here, but I guess
Yeah.
we could still search it.
Go ahead and search it, because if you have a lot of portfolios, it may not. If you have a lot of projects, it might not show up there. So like there, okay, so you got demo portfolio and you're going to hit connect. So once you find your portfolio, then you should be just typing in portfolio.
So this is this is what we started with the template, right? So this is what we just did 10 steps earlier, right?
So you're going to hit connect. So it's going to go ahead and connect, and now it's like, okay, this application is connected to that GitHub repository. So the code that's in that repository is the stuff that we want to deploy. So if you scroll down, there's a few options now that have appeared. There is an automatic deploy and there is a manual deploy. Both of these are helpful. Okay, so the manual deploy allows you to just say, hey, I'm ready for the changes to go live, and I hit deploy branch. And so you can do that at any time. You can go hit deploy branch. You'll take the code that you have currently in the repository and push it out. Basically as simple as that. It's really helpful. These automatic deploys are really helpful because when you turn them on, anytime you push, it will just automatically deploy for you. So this is really helpful, especially as a student, to be able to kind of play around and be able to iterate quickly. If you're on maybe a site that somebody's paying you for a maintain, you might not want that on because you may want to be able to push changes and decide when you deploy. So for those, I might not turn that on, but for this one, let's do that. Hit enable automatic. Okay. So we've got that turned on, and so now every time we push our code, it's going to go ahead and deploy things. Now, this first initial time, it hasn't deployed anything yet. It would kick off on our next push. So what we need to do is we need to start with a manual deploy. So we need to go ahead and deploy branch once here just to make sure that the process gets kicked off. Something's going to appear. You want to scroll down and keep an eye on this. Keep an eye for any errors that might occur. If you see anything go through there and it complains, then we may need to address something there. So you're going to type in node_n. Nope, that has to be uppercase. So the letters are uppercase.
It says your app was successfully deployed. Should I view it?
Yeah, you can view it if you have that one.
Still working. I went ahead and paused for a little bit. Mine's still working.
So it's just like your name and then Heroku app.
All right, so you see it kind of loading up. There we go. See, it's deployed, nice and green. So your app has been successfully deployed. We're going to hit review.
Nice and green. I will concur with that statement.
All right, there we go. So this is, if everything has worked up to this point, this is what you should see.
Yep.
Is the hello world page that we just pushed out. And as it was mentioned, if you look in the URL, you'll see that your URL is the name of the application .herokuapp.com. Okay, that's the domain that you get for free. That you don't have to pay for. If you want to put in your own custom domain, obviously you have to pay for that, and there is a process to set that up here. I'm not going to go through that today of how to set up your own custom domain, but just know that it is possible to do that. So now that we've done that, we can go and do the part that we actually wanted to do. Like this is up and it's live, so we can actually take our portfolios and get them out there. So you're going to take the files that you have, right? So we just have an index.html file here. So you're going to copy that file. You probably want to go find it on your computer.
So and Clayton, called me over, and this is an important step of getting your live portfolio into this new directory. Okay, the most common mistake is you copy the root folder and paste it as a subfolder,
Right.
And that will not work. And so what you're looking to do is copy not the folder itself, but all the files and all the subfolders.
Yeah.
And so
In Bootstrap.
mine was in Bootstrap, and I'm not copying the folder called portfolio. I'm going into portfolio. And this is where you're going to see all of your files and all your subfolders. I only have one. It's just called index.
Yeah.
But assuming I would have a new folder here called images or whatnot, and then you would have an image in here. And so, of course, you're going to copy all of this. Right click, copy.
And we're going to drop that into the public folder.
I hounded you to remember your pathing. Where is that repo on your local computer? I put mine right here, demo portfolio.
And you're not going to paste it
You're not going to paste it here.
If you paste it here, things are going to break.
Doesn't work.
Things are
Where
going to
did he
break.
say we put it? We put it
If
in.
you accidentally paste it here, you're going to have to just undo all your changes and revert all your changes, and that's really the only way back.
So, important thing here, this is where we paste it.
Right. It's really, really important that you
Inside
paste
of
it in
public. Of course, it's going to ask you, do you want to replace it? And yes, I do. And so now I've got my new index. It's replaced the old index. And I've got an images folder that's empty. Okay, so now demo portfolio has an update. So of course, as we learned, we need to push that.
Yeah.
And said I'll say copy or moved portfolio files into directory, into repo. Commit push. Based on what we've learned,
So you go back to Heroku.
We'll go back to
look at the dashboard.
So let's go back to Heroku.
Scroll up and go to the deploy tab, or sorry, the activity tab.
Let's go to the activity tab.
Okay. The activity tab tells you what's going on. So right now there's a build in progress, as you can see. Let's click on view build in progress. So we can see what's going on.
This was initiated by my push.
Yep, by your push, initiated this build. And so it's working, right? When this finishes, things will be live, right? So we really didn't have to click anything. We can click here to monitor it and see it working, and oftentimes I may need to go here to troubleshoot because sometimes things don't work, sometimes things do break. Happens more times than I like. But assuming this is all good, this will finish, we'll go to the home page, and the new stuff will be there. So getting it up is again basically becomes very easy. Once you get everything set up, it's just okay. I make changes. I commit them to GitHub, and they automatically go out to the internet.
And I imagine, this initial configuration, you do this one time, it takes an hour of your time to enable this process, which is pretty neat.
Yeah. So it takes you like an hour to set it up, and then save you hours of time from there on out, and other mistakes, because you don't have to one of the problems that happens oftentimes with FTP is maybe forget to upload one file or another, or maybe you have stale files that are out there that shouldn't be out there, or you have cases where you upload them to the wrong folder. All of those problems happen. You don't have to worry about any of those issues, because it's just taking what's in version control.
By the way, this URL right here is what you're going to put on your resumes, right? So this kind of URL is going to go right at the top of your resume as your portfolio, right? That's why we said, we want it to be something memorable, kind of short if it can be short, because this is what's going to be public facing to employers and that kind of thing.
So it should be getting pretty close.
Getting close. It is interesting just to note that it's not automatic. There's still some processes that have to run every time you do a commit and a push. It'll take 5 minutes.
It's not immediate. It is automatic, but it's not immediate.
Correct. Automatic, not immediate.
Undo my portfolio files, try to just copy them. And a good thing to do is to test it to make sure it's all good. So you can try your local host.
Yeah, I guess some just take longer than others.
Yeah, so now you can go to control. And that's what you should see then.
It's a funny term, pruning. I think of pruning, I think of like prune juice.
Is pruning as in like you might trim a tree?
Yeah.
Pause the recording while this finishes up. Okay, it looks like build succeed, launching, build finish, released, deployed to Heroku. Already got mine.
So you want to make sure you have automatic deploys turned on.
Pretty obvious. I got some Bootstrap in there. Change the font right away. It is my updated one. My updated portfolio. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this video. So this video, I'm going to separate this into 2 videos. First one, we're just going to deploy our static web portfolios. Next one, we're going to go ahead and deploy our React apps that we've been working on. Okay, so we'll put that at a different URL. It'll be a different project, but this is a really good stopping point for the first video.